Well, so then what can the U.S. do in this situation? Because it seems insane to me that, all these U.S. corporations they've all been hacked by China. They've all suffered from China. China can hack our power grid, our water grid. Like these are serious issues, but
It does seem like if there is so much denial, you talked about facing a lot of denial when you were asking people or interviewing them for this book. Like, it just seems like everything you described, if it all just keeps going the way it is, doesn't it just get worse?
Well, yes. They are aggressively targeting our institutions. Let me give you one example of them: the Russians. A single Russian intelligence agency can create a website in English, polished English, that says teachers should carry guns in American schools, and that website becomes infiltrated into the social media fabric of our society. And that same Russian entity then creates a website that says it'd be sacrilege for American teachers to start carrying guns in American schools. That's an outrage. So then these two websites become inculcated into the American information ecosystem, and they start arguing with each other. And so, you asshole, you this, calling each other names and trying to inflame obviously the bitter partisan fights that we're having in this country. So, yeah, and the ultimate is, what about the election coming up in 2024? How can Americans have confidence in the integrity of this election if we're on the receiving end of the Chinese are using AI to generate images of the Statue of Liberty and twisting the images to tear at the sense of sanctity or respect that Americans have for these national symbols. So, and they're using AI. This is not in the future. This is already happening, and this also has been on the front page of the New York Times. So, yeah, I think the ultimate price for this is that we have an election that is hung, or that we don't have confidence in, or there's some sort of crisis that has a serious impact on our democracy. So that ultimately is both the Chinese and Russian goal, is to demonstrate that democracy doesn't work, that our systems, our authoritarian systems, are far more capable and far more stable, and that democracy is messy and dirty. And so, this is a global battle, a global ideological struggle. And so to tarnish our democracy would be goal number one. And I think it's well within their reach.
Well, you mentioned the Russian group setting up opposing websites to create controversy and distract from maybe more important issues. How does that compare to what Chinese websites are doing, Chinese state-run groups?
Well, the Chinese are advertising on Facebook, billions of dollars. They're advertising on, and they're posting on Twitter. Neither Facebook nor Twitter are allowed in China. So this is asymmetrical, that the Chinese can advertise on Facebook. They can do Twitter, the fake accounts on Twitter. Jeff Bezos, thank you very much.
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk, thank you very much, Elon Musk. They have both the Russians and Chinese control television and radio stations that are broadcast in the United States. And so it's part of a pervasive, and the Chinese also have learned how to bribe influencers, social media influencers. There was controversy over the Winter Olympics in 2020 and 2022, excuse me, and so they bribed influencers on social media to tell warm and fuzzy stories about the Olympics for an American audience. And most recently, one of the big Chinese shopping apps, either Temu or Shine, there are two major shopping apps now among the most downloaded by Americans. The top four apps that are being most heavily downloaded are TikTok, Shine, Temu, and a fourth one that is an editing tool for TikTok. So we're being swamped with these Chinese applications. But in this case, the retailer took a group of influencers on a fake tour to China to show them how happy all the workers were. And so the influencers came back and said, no, there's no prison labor, slave labor involved in these goods. It's all happy. Everybody's happy. So the Chinese have penetrated to that level in our social media that they can reach out directly to the influencers to try to shape American perceptions of Chinese brands.
I think one of the problems is there's this arrogance in the U.S. that America has the best technology, made in China is crap, and especially with all of the sanctions on China recently with like high tech and chips, that there's no way China should have the capabilities to run roughshod over the U.S. in cyberspace.
Well, you're right. I mean, we invented these technologies. We invented the servers, the routers, the software. The whole ecosystem was driven by the Americans, and so we do have some arrogance about that. That who would dare to mess with what we, the Americans, have created? Isn't this? Aren't these tools so powerful and so sacred almost that no one would dare to penetrate them? And as a result of that attitude, I remember during the early days of the internet, we thought this was going to change the world. The world would rise up and embrace democracy. That this would be people-to-people communications. We had these wildly naive and arrogant attitudes about the power of the internet. So guess what? We didn't take security seriously. A lot of the software in the internet and in use every day by corporations is open source software, meaning nobody knows where it came from. No one has really looked at the known vulnerabilities in it. So that it's like Swiss cheese. So that, I mean, you see the announcement, they don't get much attention, but Apple just announced 3 zero-day patches. What that means is they just discovered 3 attacks on their systems that are 0-day, meaning no one has ever seen them before. So, and they issue patches. Microsoft is particularly vulnerable lately because they built such a infrastructure in China. They sell 70 products in China, and the Chinese have access to the source code for all of those. So that recently the attacks on the State Department and the Commerce Department were through Microsoft software, Microsoft in the cloud software. So technology companies the big tech companies are in a really bad spot because their systems are being abused by the Chinese. And so I don't think they could stop it because if they did stop it, they would be shut down in China. They would lose all their sales in China. So in some ways, they've become complicit in the strategies of the Chinese Communist Party. That's a pretty shocking statement, but I think it would stand up to the scrutiny.
I mean, I've heard of cases where access to critical systems in the U.S., like there was no password even protecting the systems.
Well, in SolarWinds, the Russians were able to get into that system because the password was something like SolarWinds, and then the password, the user ID was SolarWinds, and the password was administrator 123, something like that. So they were able to get in because we Americans hadn't taken proper safeguards to defend our systems. So then in that case, they were able to get in so deeply that SolarWinds is a company that makes software so that big companies can sort of see all their systems, big complex IT systems. And so SolarWinds makes a product called Orion. So the Russians were able to get in. And the way things work these days in the software industry is that there are frequent updates, frequent upgrades. As people improve or find problems, they issue upgrades that are downloaded automatically into the systems of their customers, their corporate customers, and they carry a signature on them that this legitimate. The Russians were able to get into this product and insert malware and then apply a genuine signature to it so that when it was downloaded into corporate systems, that the systems administrators looked at it and said, that's Orion. That's a legitimate software upgrade. And in fact, the Russians had snuck in the door. So that's how sophisticated they've become and how lax we have become.
I mean, I can relate because I feel like anytime my computer tells me, hey, it's time for an upgrade, I'm like, I don't want to upgrade. The thing works. If I do an upgrade, something's not going to work.
Right.
Well, also, how many passwords do you have to come up with for different things, right? Like, I think like most Americans reuse the same passwords or like...
Yeah, I'm China guy 123. Oh, shoot.
Oh no, Chris. But is there something that you would say that most Americans would not know about Chinese cyber attacks? You mentioned something called persistent access in your book. I think that's something that I didn't really know was happening beforehand. Could you explain some of that?
Well, they are in our systems. They are in our computers. It's not like they stage random attacks and then go away. And they have the capacity to hide in our systems for years, and particularly in our cloud computing systems that are so big and so complex. For example, the APT-10 case, Advanced Persistent Threat 10, which was revealed in 2018. The Chinese were in IBM's cloud computing systems for 4 years. 4 years, got into dozens of different industries in different countries, and the feds finally figured it out and pulled the lever that expelled them, or we believe they pulled it. But then Wall Street Journal asked IBM, "Is it true the Chinese were in your systems for 4 years?" And the IBM guys said, "What? We don't know anything about this. We don't see. We never saw it." So the Chinese can get legitimate passwords and user IDs and operate as legitimate users in a lot of systems. The knowledge they want, they can exfiltrate that quietly through email servers or through servers that systems administrators are not looking for or looking at. So they have the capacity to. I mean, they are in our computers today, and so are the Russians. So that maybe many Americans don't recognize that or don't understand that.
The enemies are in the gate.
Do you think the U.S. government knows the whole scope of this?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we created the Department of Homeland Security in a state of emergency. This has been unfolding over so many years that we haven't been galvanized. We have not created a Department of Digital Services, which is something my co-author and I suggest that we do. There are so many different places of responsibility in the U.S. government for cyber. There's within the Homeland Security Department, there's CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, headed by Jen Easterly. Then you have NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technologies, within the Department of Commerce, which tracks known vulnerabilities and issues and publicizes that information. In fact, they have a database of known vulnerabilities that's open to the public. And guess who has access to that? The Chinese Ministry of State Security has been observed going into that database and learning where all the known vulnerabilities are in America's computing systems. How insane is that? But so then you have FBI and you have NSA, CIA. You have all these different agencies with different responsibilities, but there's no cohesion to it. There's no coherence to it. There was Chris Inglis was named the digital czar at the White House level, but that position he left. He got fed up and left. And so as a result, there is no one in charge of America's digital strategy.
Wow.
So that's the situation.
I feel like every time we have a podcast, I'm horrified at something.
Yeah.